Sure. Can I record on my end too?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I've never done that before. Um, all
You
right.
can
Well,
do it. You know how to, you have to hit it yourself. It won't record unless you hit record.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Perfect. Okay. All right. I'll jump right in. And normally interviews average like 40, 45 minutes in that range. So,
Super.
all
Your
right.
turn.
Here we go. All right. Welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Grin, and I have Melissa Klepacki on. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Brian, I'm so happy to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Well, maybe not my first, but one of my first poop experts. Is that is that a good title?
Sure, yes, I'll take it. And if I had known that this would be my path 10 years ago, if you told me I would be talking on national podcasts about poop, I would have said, absolutely not. But here I am. It's just
Well,
so important. It needs to be talked about.
yeah, it's like I feel like some people don't want to talk about that stuff, right?
Most people don't want to talk about that. In fact, when I sit down with a client and I start to talk about it, I get very short, one word answers with a look, with a look of shame. And it shouldn't be something we stop talking about once we're potty trained. We should be having conversations with our providers, with our children, with our elderly parents, with our peers.
Yeah, well, maybe we can get into like what changes throughout, you're a child, right? You're probably pooping every, I don't know how many times children poop, probably after every meal,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And then we as we get older, we're lucky, some people are lucky to do it once a day.
That's what we strive for every morning. A good poop every morning is the way to go. But I have plenty of clients that poop once a week, and it's
Oh,
normal for them. And that's the other thing. When providers talk to clients or patients and we say, how do you poop? And people say, fine. And you say, every day? And they look at you, no. And you say, how often? And they're like, once a week. It's been like that forever. It's
mm,
not okay. We can talk about it, but there's a lot of downline effects that happen when you're not moving your bowels regularly. And by regularly, I mean at least once a day.
okay. Yeah. And what made you get into this aspect of health? I know you said you were an acupuncture starting out back when the
So I started studying acupuncture back in the 90s in Chinese medicine, which is really the root cause medicine. It's the way it's always been in Chinese medicine. And so I was trained really well, really early, and wound up myself contracting Lyme disease. But I went undiagnosed for 5 years, and was told that I was maybe clinically depressed, that I needed to get more sleep. I was a mom of two kids. Of course, I was tired. I had symptoms ranging from numbness to a lot of GI problems to plenty of orthopedic complaints that would come and go almost as if I was faking it. One day it would be my neck. I wouldn't be able to turn my head. 3 weeks later, it was my sacrum. I couldn't bend over. There was no rhyme or reason. And then after finally being diagnosed and treated in a Western medicine setting with a ton of antibiotics, because I learned that not only did I have Lyme disease, but I had other infections. If anyone's listening out there, Lyme disease rarely travels by itself. It's carried by a tick most often. And I picked up three other bacterial infections along the way: Babesia, Bartonella, and Rocky Mountain spotted fever, all requiring different antibiotics and different treatment. And I obliterated my gut health. I
trying
wasn't
to heal
pooping.
with the
Yeah,
antibiotics. Yeah.
right.
Did it help get rid of the Lyme disease or
By then I had had it for 5 years, right? I had chronic bacterial infections. And to this day, we're not sure in the Lyme community if you can completely eradicate this bacteria. Um, I continue to test positive today, but I am symptom free. But I did a number on my gut. And it was almost as bad as the symptoms of Lyme disease, the isolation, right, that I felt when I couldn't go out to eat with my friends because I would look at the menu and know that every single thing on the menu was going to make my stomach upset, right? I was eating just a handful of different foods. Um, I, was pooping so irregularly that I couldn't do the things that I love to do. I was an outside hiker. I loved to hike, and that, I was exhausted from Lyme disease, but I also was so unsure of when I was going to need to use the bathroom that a 4-hour trip into nature wasn't happening for me.
Mm.
So it really was, life altering in a very isolating way. And what I realized as I got into treating and working with more and more people with tick-borne disease and undiagnosed environmental illness, it's sort of the people that come to me. The one thing that they had in common is they're all constipated.
Mm.
So if gut health is off and you're not pooping and you're trying to do any sort of detox or any sort of killing of anything, and you're not able to get that out regularly out of your body because that becomes toxic as bacteria die, or they release chemicals, very, very toxic. It's why a lot of Lyme patients wind up sicker, called a Herxheimer reaction, when there's just too much toxic fallout. And so that's the work that I'm doing now, while I still continue to work to help people find healing from chronic undiagnosed illness. The one thing everyone has in common is this constipation.
Mm.
It's a big problem.
I know some people when they travel too, they get constipated. What would you say the reason behind that is? It's just a
There's a
different.
lot of reasons.
Okay.
Well, I've identified 8 root causes of constipation. And I did this work because when I went to the doctor myself and asked, okay, why is this happening? Why am I constipated? I went to just a gastroenterologist who did an endoscopy, which is the throat down the tube, a colonoscopy, which is a tube up the butt, and I was under 40 at the time. And then even I did something called a capsule biopsy, where you swallow a camera and it takes pictures as it
Mm.
goes through your
Wow.
entire digestive system, and was told that I was fine. I
Hmm.
had a ton of stomach pain, um, and a ton of constipation. And when I asked why am I constipated? The doctor said, I don't know, just eat some fiber and drink more water and take Miralax and you'll be fine. And I said, fine? Doesn't sound like that's going to fix my problem. And he sort of looked at me quizzically, like, I don't, I, he was, didn't really understand what I was after, the fixing of the problem. This was a solution, but it definitely wasn't healing. And so there are 8 root causes. There are 8 reasons, unless somebody has had operations and has adhesions and there's physical blockages, which is a reason for constipation. I'm talking about people who, maybe at one time had normal bowel movements and now all of a sudden are constipated. I've identified 8 root causes, which range from definitely fiber and water, right? If we're not getting fiber and water, we're going to be constipated. But to things like toxic mold exposure really shuts down the bowels. Parasitic activity. If you have a high level of parasites, you're going to have problems pooping. If you've got a fatty liver and your liver's not working correctly, it's another reason. And a lot of these work together. So there's really rarely just one root cause. But if you go to the doctor and he says, drink more water and eat more fiber, and you're not doing that already, and that's the root cause of why you're constipated, okay, it's fixed. Awesome. But for most people, it's not that easy, especially when it's been chronic.
Mm. And you came out with the gut reset, right?
Gut Reset 123 is a program I developed mostly because people in a chronic constipation situation are very isolated. Illness is very isolating. And so when you can heal with others and you have a community and you're working together, learning new things and setting new goals and creating new healthy habits, it's much easier when we have accountability partners. So
Yeah.
the program is a 12-week program. At the very beginning, we're all doing gut testing. That's really important. If you're listening out there and you're like, I've tried everything. I've done the water, I've done the fiber, my liver's fine. I go through in my master class next month, all 8 root causes, so people can really help to self-identify. And you say, I've done all that. Everything's fine. It's time to gut test. Stop
Yeah.
guessing. The gut test is going to show us the baddies. I call them the baddies, the bad gut bacteria that are overgrown. It'll also show us some of the good guys that are most likely overgrown when we're in a state of gut dysbiosis. But it tells us a lot of other really interesting things. It tells us, for instance, if we're reacting to gluten. right? All my clients will say, oh, I don't have a problem with gluten because nobody wants to give up their pizza and their bread and their bagels. But when we get the test back, and there's a component of the test called the anti-gliadin IgA, and it's measuring the reactivity in your body, and it's off the charts. It's causing inflammation. That can't be argued with. I can look at how you're digesting. A lot of times constipation is because our stomach acid just isn't strong enough.
Hmm.
People have had acid reflux, they've gone to the doctor, they've gone on PPI medications, which lowers their stomach acid, which means their food is not breaking down correctly at the very beginning of digestion. They're winding up constipated. It'll tell me, is that one of the root causes? Right? So
What?
there's so much we learn, and then once we learn, we know what to do next. But if you're operating in the dark without the testing, it's difficult. It's a lot of
Yeah.
guesswork.
And gut health testing has come a long way, probably from, if you can tell, for the last probably 10, 20 years. What test are you utilizing? I know there's quite a few out there.
Yes, I use a test called the GI map.
Okay.
There are a few out there. There are some that give you a lot more information. And the truth is gut testing is this next new frontier in medicine. Everybody is trying to figure it out because we're learning really interesting things. Like if we compare the gut microbiome, and when I say microbiome, I mean the stuff that's living in your gut. That's your microbiome. And you have, for instance, heart disease. And I compare your microbiome to 100 other people with with heart disease. There's a lot of similarities in those microbiomes. And the question is, by shifting the microbiome, can we shift out of that heart disease pattern? We already see something called fecal transplants,
Right.
very successful in people who've had a bacterial infection called C. diff, right? C. difficile is a bacteria that gets into the intestines, and a lot of people wind up having part of their intestines removed. Um, yeah, so the test will tell us that too. The testing is really where it's at. And then once you've got the test, you build your protocol. You go, I've got a little bit of this and a little bit of this. And then you know how to heal it. Also, the cool thing about the test that I really like is that so many people are into taking probiotics, which I'm like, yes, we all need good gut bacteria. But if we're taking, number one, the same probiotic month after month after month, you're growing in your garden, in your gut, a garden
Hmm.
of just tulips, a monocrop. And what we really need is a huge garden of wildflowers. And that happens by taking in different kinds of probiotics from food, from things like kimchi and kombucha and yogurt, and then different strains. If you look at the back of your probiotic bottle, it'll tell you exactly which strains you're taking. You take the test, it shows you which strains you're missing. Those are the ones you take. Right. And then we nurture those because we have to remember that as we're growing this garden in our gut, we need to have good soil to plant those seeds into, first off, right? Do we have healthy, good gut lining? And second of all, are we feeding them? Because you put all those good gut bacteria in there, and then you have a really low fiber, low polyphenol. Polyphenols are the chemicals that are in those dark, leafy green, vibrant red, carrot, orange colored vegetables. And that's what is feeding that gut. And so we
What
need
would
to take that all into account.
what would you say some of the big culprits are that have sort of caused this evolution of just like dysbiosis in the gut? You mentioned antibiotics. What else would you say would be causing it?
Yeah, antibiotics is huge, and there are studies out there that says 3 to 6 months it takes to put good probiotics back in. Once you've had one round, 10 days of antibiotics, you've wiped out all the good guys.
Hmm.
But that's a big one. Alcohol, not great. Artificial sweeteners, pretty bad for your gut. And glyphosate. Glyphosate is the chemical that's sprayed on our grains in this country. It's why it's not sprayed in Europe. It's why you can eat bread in Europe or pasta in Europe and feel fine, and then come back here and try to do the same thing, and your gut's all out of whack. It's
Hmm.
the glyphosate, it's not the gluten. So that there's a great book if anyone's listening and interested. Stephanie Seneff is a doctor out of MIT. She's amazing. She wrote a book called I think it's called
Yeah,
Toxic Legacy.
I've listened to her. Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah. So, I mean, if she says all the time, if you knew how bad this chemical was, you would be doing everything in your power to avoid it. Yet, you go to the grocery store and it's just bread products and gluten. And it's not just gluten, it's wheat product, it's oats and any of our grains. They're also sprayed with
What
glyphosate
about
unless they're organic.
even fruits and vegetables too,
Not
or not
really
as
fruits and
much?
vegetables.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a desiccant and it's a drying chemical. They spray it on grains because it helps
Oh,
them to have a better harvest. So that's the majority is coming from our grains.
okay.
Yeah.
And so what would be, in your gut reset, what's, past the gut testing? Obviously, it's tough to decide like what route to go, but there's got to be some good principles that people can take maybe to just create an environment for, the gut to thrive in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if people out there are listening and they're looking to better their gut health and they're not, in a position to do gut testing, et cetera, you can avoid those things that I mentioned. We can avoid glyphosate. We can avoid artificial sweeteners. We can think about feeding our guts polyphenols, very like fiber rich foods. In fact, if people go to startpoopingbetter.com, I wrote an ebook about how to start pooping better. If you don't know where to turn, start here. There's a recipe for my good poop vegetable soup. And I love the recipe because it can be made anywhere. If you're living in a food desert and you only have canned stock and vegetables or frozen, great. If you live on a farm and you can harvest everything yourself and use bone broth, which is really gut healing, awesome. You want to add protein, it's a great recipe, but the point is it's going to feed those gut bugs that you're trying so hard to grow.
Mm. And what are your thoughts around, I mean, I've had I don't know if you know Jay Feldman. I've had some individuals on the podcast talk about endotoxin load as becoming, one of the big killers, or at least issues when it comes to, overall health. Any thoughts on that? Like, you talk about, I talk sometimes, sometimes people will get into these really restrictive diets, do fasting or get into carnivore, and it actually helps for the time being because, they have all this endotoxin load, and they have trouble digesting these, fruits and vegetables that maybe other people could digest, mainly vegetables, probably.
I don't know
Um,
if that's so much endotoxins as it is just not having the right bacteria in your gut that are helping you to do those, carry out all the digestive processes. That combined with maybe not enough pancreatic enzyme or not enough digestive juice, right? Maybe they need some HCl
sure.
or some digestive enzymes. But, we're seeing more and more toxic load. If you take a look at what's in your tap water, have you ever gone to ewg.org/tapwater? Environmental Working Group is an amazing website. If you're listening to this, they are the watchdogs for our health. They are looking at all kinds of things, beauty products and home care products and our tap water, ewg.org/tapwater. You put in your zip code. If you live in a very big area and you have more than one water company, it will bring up the water companies. You choose your water company and you see the report. It's terrifying. It contains radioactive elements. Mine contains
Really?
PFOA and PFAS, which are forever chemicals. Nobody should be drinking that. And a Brita filter is not cutting it.
Yeah. I'm just publishing an interview with Dr. Paul Savage. He's out of Chicago, actually, and he does plasma exchange to help people get rid of the toxic load. It's not for everybody, but they test and they see how high, they might be in glyphosate and other toxins. And then you do sort of this plasma exchange over like a 6 month period. Definitely pretty expensive, costly, but some people might need it. Not everyone. Um, and anyways, I was just thinking,
I think there's gentler ways, and I think really understanding where your toxins are coming from and stopping them from coming in
right.
is the very first step
Is
for
there
all of
is there a
us.
certain water filtration system that you like?
I'll tell you what I have on my house. I have a whole house system
Okay.
that's just a filter system, and it takes out the fluoride and the microplastics, etc. But for drinking, I run all my water through a distiller. So I have a distiller in my basement that has an 8 gallon holding tank, and it runs water to one spigot and to one ice maker. And that's what we use for drinking and cooking and the dogs. And it's crazy because it's already coming into that distiller through the first system, right? So it's going through that whole first system into the distiller. And when we clean out that distiller bucket, because you have to clean it out, because what happens is it's creating a steam vapor and collecting the steam vapor, and that's what you're drinking. But all of the solids fall to the bottom of this container, and it's like shale. It is gross. And I think that's what I would be drinking. That's what I was drinking before I had the distiller when I thought the system that I had was adequate. It's just not. We need to drink too much water these days, right? We need a really half of our body weight in ounces of pure, clean water so that our kidneys can do their job and our bodies can operate. And if your water is toxic,
So EWG .org, which I've been to before, slash water. Is that what it
fresh
is?
tap water.
Slash tap water. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll sort of see so how your like your county or your city rates as far as their water.
It'll show you all the contaminants and it'll say like legally allowed and then recommended. The EWG has recommended limits and like it blows through the recommended limits in a lot of places for a lot of people. It depends on where you live, but
Yeah.
you should definitely check your water. And if you have a well, you need to get your well water tested because if you live anywhere near a farm or a golf course or an airport or anywhere with toxic runoff,
Mm.
you're drinking that. It's not
Yeah.
okay.
I like to ask this question to a lot of my guests. What's one thing you've changed your mind about in the last 10 years?
I think the importance of a multivitamin. I think I
Hmm.
really used to think that everyone should be taking a multivitamin because we need the protection. It's a blanket protection. And truthfully, I think that most people, not most people, I think people who are taking supplements, right? The people who are actually actively pursuing health and looking for ways are probably getting enough vitamins, but what they're not getting is minerals. And that is a huge problem. We are super undermineralized, and we know magnesium alone is responsible for 300 enzymatic processes in the body. And everybody I've ever tested is like low in magnesium. I take magnesium daily. I was tested in March and I was low in magnesium. And I had taken it the night before and I was like, and my doctor said, that's how fast you're using it.
Mineral testing, are you doing that as well? Is that like
Yep.
a
You can
hair
Yeah, you
mineral
can do
test?
hair mineral analysis. It's not my I put everybody on minerals. All of my clients are on minerals. And it's amazing. Some people's energy level triples when they're finally, it's not going to happen overnight. You need to build those back up into your system, taking them continuously. But the first 2, 3 months of working with someone, we're remineralizing their body. It's a game changer. It's a
Yeah,
game changer.
is that mainly because just the soil depletion and that's happened
Soil
over the last?
depletion and diet and
Yeah,
stress
right.
and terrible water and terrible air. Our bodies are under attack. We are constantly working to detox. And for anyone out there who says, detox is a scam, our bodies were built to detox, please, I invite you to come take a total tox burden test with me and take a look at actually what's inside because it's pretty horrifying. I don't
What
think you need to do plasma exchange, but I think that everyone should be focused pretty regularly on some detox practices.
what was the test that you mentioned that you just
It's
said that?
it's a really great lab called Vibrant Wellness, and they have a
Sure.
total tox burden test, which looks at tons of different chemicals. It looks at a little bit of molds. It's a great place to start for people who have been told by their doctor that everything's normal. You're fine, right? We listen, sir. Like we've done every test we can, and really, maybe you just need to get a little more rest. Maybe you need to eat a little bit better. Maybe you need need a little less stress. If you know something's wrong, you need to start looking for a different practitioner, a different way of looking at the body, whether that's Eastern or Western or homeopathic or Ayurvedic. There's so many different ways to heal. But if you're not getting the answers that you need, right? You need to look somewhere else. You can't keep going back to the same system because you're going to get the same answers. So I always tell people it's finding the right practitioner and having the right test, and that's where the magic happens. So
Yeah.
if you're suffering with brain fog and you can't get out of bed and your stomach's a mess and you have random joint pains, like you can't live like that, you know? And I'm sure people have spent tons of money and time going to doctors, getting tests, like time to test differently, time to look at the body differently. Look at it as a system. Try to figure out what's going on overall, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's like you sort of gotta nowadays, I mean, you have these general practitioners that are trained a certain way to, treat things with a lot of pharmaceuticals. And there's a time and a place probably for that, but like I think it's important to have like someone that's more on the natural side and a wellness advocate like yourself or even myself. I just went through FDN. I don't know if you're familiar with FDN.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
Congrats.
that GI, thank you. GI map was a big one. I was curious of what gut test you used. So
I like that one. I mean, I've run gut zoomers and things like that, but some of it's just so much information. And
yeah,
again, it's a really exciting field. We're learning more and more and more. But right now, if you give me a bunch of information and I don't know what to do with it, it's just clouding the picture. Like
right.
if you have a high level of some bacteria that there's not much research on, that's not helping me. GI map, every line is actionable.
Yeah.
Right? It's
And
pretty
I
good.
feel like to some degree you can over test on all that. Like you drive yourself crazy. Right? Like sometimes getting, testing's important. I agree, but like also just sticking to the basics. Street sleep, stress. I think
Foundational medicine. It's
yeah,
foundational. It's not
right.
even functional, it's foundational. If we're not sleeping, eating, pooping, moving, and keeping our minds clean and making some time to rest your mind in meditation or mindfulness, right? Like you got to start there. Don't go seek out specialists when your foundational wellness is in the shitter, essentially, right? I mean,
I
when people come in, they're like, "Yeah, well, I eat the standard American diet, which is a bagel with cream cheese for breakfast with a coffee, two slices of pizza and a Coke for lunch, and a cheeseburger and fries and a Sprite for dinner. There's no fiber. It's all processed, and you wonder why you can't poop, right? Good poop, vegetable soup."
I love talking routines, Melissa. What's like a typical, morning and evening routine, and then what is your like what typical foods do you eat?
A typical morning for me, I'm a really early riser. I like to get up with the sun. So somewhere between 5:15 and 6 o'clock, I'm awake. I've got three dogs. I let them out. And I usually spend a little bit of time in the morning. I always make a coffee. I'll do a little of my social media. I'll do a little bit of gratitude journaling. Um, and then I kind of just dig right into my day, whether it's 7 or 8. And I usually try to exercise in the mornings. And I need to have accountability partners for exercise. If I say I'm going to go downstairs and use the gym, there's 99.9% chance it's not happening. But if I make a plan with a friend for a walk, if I have a Pilates class, if I'm hitting tennis balls or racket sports with people, if I've signed up for something, I commit and I do it. So I've learned that I'll be 54 next month, and it's taken me a long time to realize that. But it's really important in my day to get movement in. And then in the evenings, I'm a really big fan of detox baths, Epsom salt, baking soda, a little bit of essential oil. I have a little ozone generator. Sometimes I'll do an ozone bath. Um, and I try to start breaking it down, 8:30 is when I'll wash my face and take my bath and kind of ease into bed. And I'd love to be asleep by 9:30. As far as diet is concerned, it's a question that I don't like to answer because I think it's so important for people to do the work to figure out what makes your body feel best. And the answer is not the same for any two people based on the fact that we all have incredibly different microbiomes with different needs. I eat meat, I eat dairy, I eat some gluten. I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. Um, I try to I try to eat lower carb because I feel better. If I eat something with a lot of carbs, I usually wind up sleepy. And I like to keep my energy up. So a high protein breakfast and then something with protein, obviously, for lunch. And dinner is sort of my favorite meal of the day because I have a family. Sort of that's our family time. And so I want to cook healthy for them as well. But
And what
that's, yeah.
you talk about fiber, I mean, what type of, fiber foods would you recommend for individuals? I know everyone's a little bit different, but what are some of the
handle fiber, right? If you've got good digestion, the goal is 30 different fruits and vegetables a week. And a serving is like a nectarine, that counts, right? Or a whole banana, that counts. Um, but there are vegetables, some people can't tolerate oxalates. So things like spinach are really hard on their bodies. Um, I like things like onions and asparagus, which have a lot of fibers in them. Um, and then I literally make that good poop vegetable soup and it's sitting in the refrigerator. And when I'm hungry, that's what I'll have, that with a hard-boiled egg and some crackers, maybe a slice of cheese for lunch.
Where's the recipe for that on your
It's at
website?
startpoopingbetter.com. You go to Start Pooping Better and you get a whole little ebook delivered to your it
Oh,
to
the
your
good poop
box.
vegetable soup recipe. Ah, you're holding back on us. I
There it
see.
is. It's there for
Pretty
you.
okay. I'm gonna have to look at that. And maybe give the three quick tips for better bowel movements. Maybe give a little bit of a I mean, you might have talked about them already.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you're struggling out there, I think we have to always look at food, like food and hydration first, right? If you are standard American dieting and not getting enough fiber, it's good fruit vegetable soup can change that all for you. So like think about what you're taking in, number one. Number two is if you are the kind of person that gets up in the morning at 6 o'clock and expects to be out the door at 6:28, how much time have you left yourself to poop? If you're waking and you're shot out of a cannon and your heart rate spikes and you get into that fight or flight state, there ain't no chance for that morning bowel movement.
Yeah.
When I work with clients that have a hard time there, there's a meditation that I developed with a meditation teacher that really helps to relax you and take you into a parasympathetic state in the morning so that you can go empty your bowels. You do the meditation, drink a glass of water, have your bowel movement, take your shower, and get on with your day. But that requires you shifting schedules. People have a hard time waking up earlier. They just need to go to bed earlier. So that's tip number two. And then, you can really take a look at probiotics and digestive enzymes. How are you processing your food? Ask yourself if you've ever been on a ton of Tums. I used to eat Tums by the handful. If that's you, or if you have been put on a PPI by your doctor because you had acid reflux and you were on it for a while and now you've developed constipation, you could have killed your stomach acid. So trying something like digestive enzymes and probiotics on your own can make a difference. Better to know exactly which probiotics because they're not cheap. You're
Yeah,
spending 50, 60
expensive.
bucks on a bottle of probiotics. And if they're not the ones you need, you're not going to see a difference. That's why people will say, well, I took probiotics and it didn't help because you probably took the wrong ones. And if you're taking digestive enzymes, but what you need is betaine HCl to raise, to have a little more stomach acid, won't make as much of a difference either. That's why, again, it's best to test. But you
Yeah.
can try those things for sure.
Yeah, I feel like especially with probiotics, there's so many out there now. It's like you could throw a lot of money at it and not necessarily see any results.
And if you say to me, like, I'm not going to spend the money on myself to get tested, it's an investment, but it's an investment in yourself, in your health. I can't think of anywhere better that anyone could ever spend their money. But if it's not something you're willing to do, then at least rotate your probiotics. Look at the back of the bottle, read the ingredients. Is it lactobacillus? Is it bifidobacteria? Get a wide range.
I had it's been oh, gosh, over a year. I had Dr. William Davis on. I'm sure you're familiar with
Yeah.
him. And yeah, he was talking about his, I think we talked about his yogurt. That his yeah.
I think he has
Haven't
his own
made it,
recipe,
haven't
right?
what's that?
He has his own special recipe.
Yeah.
I don't make yogurt. No, I haven't. Did
Okay.
you make
I
it?
no, haven't we have actually he's not the only person I've had on who's has he sent me a yogurt maker. It wasn't him, someone else. And my wife makes a lot of things and we have it. I'm like, yogurt, Greek yogurt's expensive.
It is.
It adds up. You get like quality Greek yogurt. So maybe I'll let you know. Maybe we'll start making some yogurt. I think it's not so easy. And there's but I forgot the yogurt maker I have, but I gotta look that up.
It's one of those things like once you get it, you get it. Kind of like sourdough bread. Like your first couple loaves are really hard, but then once you figure out how to do
Right.
it, all those COVID things we tried.
Yeah, exactly. Um, well, this is great. What other things would you say for individuals that they could do maybe outside of food to sort of help, reset their gut?
Well, not so much in terms of resetting gut, but things you can do. If you're a pooper that goes to the bathroom and you're sitting on the toilet for a half an hour and straining, that needs to end immediately. That is not good practice. You're
You
going to
find,
wind up just hurting
yeah.
yourself and getting hemorrhoids. I recommend that everybody buy themselves a squatty potty.
Oh, I got
Um,
one.
yeah, squatty potty is a little piece of plastic, and if you don't want to make the investment, you can actually take your trash can and turn it, if it's square, turn it on the side, and just get your knees up so that you're sitting tall with your knees up and that your bottom's lower than your knees. And that way you're in the proper position to poop. It makes pooping so much easier. I recommend if you have constipation or you're straining or have hemorrhoids, it's a $20 investment for a squatty potty. Like start there.
I mean, you could literally take, if you wanted, like 3 books and put them on each
Under each
side.
foot.
Right,
Yep.
yeah, under each
Yep.
foot.
You just want to make sure you're in the right position. And again, with these suggestions, like give it some time. Like don't expect to, put your feet up and like have a miraculous poop. Like it's about building a system that works for you. I also say to people, if your whole podcast is like eat lean, get clean. If people are eating a very low fat diet, that can also be a problem.
Hmm.
I like to think about lubricating from the inside out if people are having dry, hard stools. Um, and there is a medium chain triglyceride oil, MCT oil, that was made famous by Dave Asprey and his um, bulletproof coffee. And you can do that. You can add that a little bit of MCT oil. Even if you're ketogenic or if you're fasting in the morning, um, it's not going to break your fast. You can add a little MCT oil to your coffee, and that can help to lubricate you from the inside out as well. Some vitamin C and some magnesium citrate can also help people move bowels naturally. You don't want to, anything that you're doing.
Coffee?
I mean, coffee works
It's a
in your
natural
mouth
laxative, right?
and up your butt, right? I mean, coffee enemas can really help
Oh,
people.
yeah. Have you ever
Yeah,
done that before?
I have a lot. Can be really great for people with brain fog. It's very clearing. It's actually a practice that stimulates your liver. It's less about moving your bowels and more about stimulating your liver. So if fatty liver and sluggish liver is a root cause for your constipation and you're able to help your liver health, guess what? It's going to help over time.
Hmm.
Yeah. And people do drink coffee in the morning to move their bowels, but I've heard a lot of people talk about that and say it's actually just the act of drinking something. Because once we start drinking something, it starts the chain of command with digestion. Your tummy starts to rumble. It's like, okay, food's coming, evacuate, make room. So whether that's coffee or tea or water, you can get
You
the
know,
same effect.
one thing I found for myself and even for some individuals that I've talked to in the past that maybe get on a, they're fasting, they're doing some carnivore, they're not pooping as much. I know I don't fast much anymore, like I used to. I wasn't eating enough probably from that and wasn't getting enough protein in. So I started adding in some meals and adding in some fruits, a little bit of vegetables, but mainly fruits, and that really helped with bowel movements. So I think people that can maybe overdo, just if they're, let's just say they're just eating meat, I mean that could cause constipation as well.
Well, think about it. You're not feeding your gut bugs. So you can, I like a carnivore, ketogenic, um, intermittent fasting, purposefully cycling in and out.
Yeah.
Right. I don't,
Yeah.
and especially for women, I think it can be really disastrous, especially with skipping breakfast. I'd rather have women skip dinner. And you have to be really careful around your period. Um, but I think that if you're not feeding those gut bugs and you're on a long-term sort of meat only program,
Right.
you're going to run into problems. Those people need to get a gut test.
Yeah.
Let's see what's missing and start. And so maybe, you figure out a way to have really, on the weekends, you're doing lots of fruits and vegetables. And then during the week, you're doing your keto or your carnivore.
It's my assistant that just walked in.
Definitely.
Yogurt Maker Ultimate. Oh, that's the name of it.
Ah, okay. See, she's ready. She's primed. She's probably
Yeah,
gotten out and she's
I
like,
got her
here we
pumped
go.
up. She's ready to go. She's gonna make some yogurt.
Yeah. And you can add all kinds of different strains to your own yogurt and really,
Yeah.
you know, make some
Yeah.
pretty neat stuff. It's like
So
a
I
whole
guess the name
science
of the
experiment.
yeah, the name of the yogurt maker is called Ultimate.
Ultimate.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyways. Um, this was great, Melissa. Where's the best place for people to find you?
So my website is my name, melissahallklepacki.com. There's all kinds of information about the work that I do. Gut Reset 123 is my program that launches September. It's a live cohort. Again, I think it's really important for all of us to be in it together, right? So we have live Zoom calls and we have a Facebook group. And so people can check that out there and start pooping better. Start making some good poop vegetable soup. Get your gut on track. Winter's coming. You're going to be so psyched to have this soup recipe.
Yeah, you got to patent that.
Yeah. I'd just be happy if the world starts eating it.
Okay.
You can
Um,
you can take it as your own. Put your little logo on there and send it out to your people as a little
oh,
gift.
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hey, build a community, right? And also your ebooks on startpoopingbetter.com. Love that
Yeah.
you got that URL.
Yeah.
Must have paid big money for that one.
Sure, everyone was clamoring for that one.
uh, excellent, excellent. Well, it was great meeting you. I appreciate you coming on, and I will put links in the show notes so people can find you and learn about your work. And yeah, if you're constipated, Melissa's the one to go to.
Right. You got to fix it before you have bigger problems.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Trying to figure out how to